Hello everyone and welcome to a Create with Kiely art tutorial video. In this video we are going to learn about the grayscale and how to make a circle look like a sphere. What you're going to need today in this lesson is a pencil. It can be mechanical or it can be your regular old pencil, and a ruler with the inches on it, not just the centimeters. Drawing is the most fundamental part of art or any kind of creative expression. It's really important to have the skills and develop the skills to be able to get what's in your head onto the page. Part of those skills, that bag of tricks and learning, includes knowing how to use your pencil to get the full range of value, the darkest and the lightest abilities of your pencil. So we're going to create a grayscale today. Put your sketchbooks or piece of paper in a landscape format, so it's wider than it is taller. And this is the crease of my sketchbook here. I'm going to move my ruler just out of that crease, like don't draw right in here. And I'm going to find the 0 on my ruler. For this one, the line, this first line, is indicating where 0 is. So find 0 on your ruler and line it up with the physical edge of the paper. And draw, starting at number 1 on your inches, a line that goes all the way across to number 10, and put a dash at every inch. Okay. Then, so that our grayscale that we're creating is going to remain consistent in width, put your 0 marker along the line that you just drew and put a dash at 1.5. Half is between 1 and 2, that half mark. And anywhere along that line, do it a second time. So I'm just moving it down, because in order to get a straight line, you have to measure twice. There we go. So I have 2 random little indicators. I'm going to flip my sketchbook back to the landscape mode and find 0. Put it on the physical edge of the page, line it up with those 2 dashes. And just like we did for the first line, starting at 1 inch, draw a line that goes all the way to the 10th inch and put a dash at each one. Just a little mark. Maybe you can't see it in the camera screen, but you know it's there. We're going to finish up the scale. So connecting the dots, making sure that they sit on the top edge of that ruler, we're going to close it off and make a ladder. This is our grayscale. This is a tool that artists use to judge and measure the value, the lightness of darkness of a color or tone. It's often something that I refer to in my classes, where I'd say, oh, that's close to a level 1 on the grayscale, or it's very dark, you've got lots of 9s and 10s. So if 0 is the white of the page, and this is 1, this is your 9. So 1 is very, very light. It's as light as you possibly can get it, that's closest to the white of the page. So when you want to draw lightly using a graphite pencil, it's best to hold it down towards the eraser end of the pencil instead of like as if you were printing or writing or needing some fine control of the pencil. We need to keep it light. There's a lot less pressure here when you're working with this. So going in really lightly, just like a feather's breadth of pressure, and you're essentially just coloring in this rectangle, but you're being mindful of your pencil strokes and trying to maintain that pressure as well as fill in that box consistently. Before we go any further today, and as we move into the graphite pencil unit in the beginning of this section, this chapter of this course, I want you to pause because we're at the very, very beginning. I don't know where you are in YouTube land watching this video, where you are in your learning, but I want you to place your right hand over your heart and hold up your left hand. Everyone in the classroom, right hand over your heart, left hand up in the air, and repeat after me. I solemnly swear to never smudge with my finger from this day forth. So we're never going to be blending again with our fingers. We are going to develop the fine motor skills with our hands instead of blending with our fingers. Why? Because our hands create an oil, a natural oil, and when you blend it in with the graphite, it's really noticeable, it's very obvious. As you develop your skills, you may be interested in looking into getting like a blending tool. There are tools that exist where essentially they're just like tightly rolled pieces of paper, and you can blend with those. Today with this activity, let's refrain from using blending tools. Let's just work and be conscious of the small microscopic little muscles in our hand, and we're just going to be working them out, okay? As if we're going to the gym, the artist gym. So moving forward, we're on to box number 2, which is going to be 1 step darker. So as we progress, as we move to the other side of this ladder, each box is going to get progressively darker, but not suddenly. We're looking for really even steps here. Not a sudden, oof, now we're dark. So my look fors in this assignment, in this little task, the things that I want you to be thinking about as you're working, obviously include neatness. Hide your pencil strokes by layering the graphite. So sure, we're not using a blending tool right now, but you can still layer it. You can erase things that get really dark, try to lighten things with an eraser, or darken things that get too light. What we want to avoid are these waves. Sometimes when we're coloring in something, when we're shading something in, and we move to a different spot, and the top of a stroke overlaps the bottom of another stroke, and they create this wave effect. See that? Or you're rushing and you color in this way, and then you're like, oh, I gotta get it darker, and you can see the white of the page between each of the strokes. So we want to avoid this sort of stuff, and that takes slowing down, being a little bit more careful. We're also looking for even steps in value. There's a tip. Squint at your work, and if 2 shades kind of blend into each other as you're squinting at them, that tells you that you haven't made enough of an even discernible step between each value. So you can pick away at your grayscale, making sure that it's neat, that if you escaped the boxes with a pencil stroke, you clean those up. You squint at it, make sure that each box is 1 shade different than the adjacent box, the one beside it. And once you have all that figured out, we're going to set up for the next part of this lesson. So you guys can keep chugging along there. While I hand out this. using Philadelphia cream cheese lids, but you can use whatever you have handy. So I use these in my classroom as paint palettes. It's a nice way to reuse, reduce, and recycle. And no, I'm not being sponsored by Philadelphia cream cheese. So they just happen to be here. So take the tracer that I have handed out. If you're not done the Greyscale, you know what to do. You just need more time to do it. We're going to keep moving with this lesson, and then afterwards you can fill in the boxes that you didn't quite get done. So put the lid somewhere around the middle. We'll just eyeball it and trace it. There you go. Don't push too hard with your tracing. Okay, keep it like a level 2 on the Greyscale. So if you went a little too hard, you can lighten it up. Then with your ruler, put a line behind the circle that is like 1/3 down. So if this is the middle, just go down 1/3. Or you could even go put the bottom edge of the ruler with the bottom edge of the circle and put the line behind it. Don't draw across it, put it behind. Like so. Then I find it's easier to turn my book portrait ways. And kind of in between the bottom edge of this circle and this line, so right in the middle-ish area, come off and draw an upside down letter U, a softly curved line past that circle, and about where you started that line, like across from it there, go right across. You started there, go right across. A taller letter U. Really light. Level 1, level 2 on the Greyscale. Keep it nice and light, and you're drawing this stretched out ellipse. Like a tongue depressor shape. And then you flip your book back upright. So all drawings generally start with the basic lines and shapes. This right now is a circle, elementary school circle. We're going to transform this circle into a sphere. In order to do that, artists need to use different types of illusions to create this sense of 3D-ness, to move the flat 2D to a rounder, real-life 3D. That means we need to use value and a full range of the Greyscale, from all the way light to all the way dark. Speaking of light, in our imaginary little world, we are going to have our light source coming from up here. This is where the sun is going to be hanging out and casting its light on our circle. Everything that's closest to the light source is going to be lighter, and everything that's further away from it will be darker. So that being said, really light, like this level, just soft. I want you to draw another oval that's facing that sun. Very soft. We might even be erasing it later, but we're just indicating that this is where the light's hitting this sphere, and it's going to be the brightest, lightest spot. It's going to be the white of the page. We're not even going to color over it. It's so bright. As we progress across the surface of this sphere, it's going to gradually change in value and get darker. So when we do that, our pencil strokes, as we shade it in, should be mimicking the form of that sphere. So I kind of put some guidelines of where the values are going to change and give myself a direction. Since this sphere is round, I want my shadows to be round. If I did a straight line across, it would really flatten it. So everything I put down on this object needs to have some roundness, a suggestion of form. Most things reflect light. It bounces all over the place. Even the surface that this sphere is sitting on is going to reflect a little bit of light. It won't be as bright as the highlight, but it will look more realistic, more convincing if we have the slightest little bit of a higher value over here. Just a small edge. Once again, I'm just lightly indicating these things with my pencil so that as I'm journeying through shading, I will know what to do and where to do it. So kind of planning out my route. So we can go right in there. I like to start in the middle with the middle values, kind of warm up. My pencil strokes are going to mimic the form. If you use flat, straight pencil strokes, if you're just like, oh, I gotta get this done, and you shade across it like willy-nilly in harsh diagonal lines or horizontal lines, it's not going to convince the viewer that this is round as well as a round stroke would. So we're using not only value to create that illusion of form, but also the lines of our pencil. And I'm just starting in here. I like to build up my value slowly and gradually with care. So yes, you can see between my pencil strokes, but this is the first layer, so don't worry. By the time you get to the far side of our sphere, you should be hitting like a level 9 or 8 on the grayscale, like quite dark. So just build up that graphite, slowly increase pressure. Some people like to jump straight into the hard pressure of the dark grays. That's okay too. And even on, so I've got my highlight here, I've indicated it, but over on this side between the edge and the highlight, I should have like a level 1. This sphere drawing exercise is in like every how to draw book that exists. And if it doesn't have it, then you shouldn't get the book. Lighten your outlines because we're going to work towards using an implied line where we don't really have any outlines anymore. Realistically, things don't have outlines. What they are edges and changes in value. So I'm going to show you how to do that as we work on this drawing. So everything has a light and everything has a dark. Very yin, very yang, balance to the universe. So if we have a level 0 or 1 up here on our highlights, there'll also be a level 10 hidden in this piece somewhere else. Generally, that is found on the part where the object touches the surface of the table. So even if it's like a super bright day and everything's white on white on white, there's going to be some level 10 value right where the object touches the surface. So go in and reapply some full level 10 dark values, and you can even thicken that, making it like a really thin ellipse, mimicking that shadow that we've laid out. So it just kind of comes off a little bit. That's a full level 10. Then keep expanding, but don't use that full level 10 pressure. I get students who submit drawings to me and they draw the object really, really well with the full gradation. They took a lot of time doing it. And then they go in and they put this really, really hard edged shadow that's full black. They just like dumped that on there, bucket fill black. And it really ruins the drawing because it becomes a flattened shape. It flattens everything with this contrast between a flat black shape and this nice gradation of value on the... It really flattens the drawing and makes it The harsh black shadow really flattens the drawing, even though they took a lot of time to develop the value and gradation of the object itself. You need to look at the shadows and carefully study them just as much as you do the object, because shadows do tend to fade on the edges. They don't have, depending on the lighting, there's always an exception to everything, but for the most part, they have a soft edge to them, and you should never outline your shadows and then color them in. If you can see the outline of the shadow, erase it. Erase that outline. And as the shadow, this particular one, comes out from underneath the object on this side over here, it'll get lighter and lighter because the light source can kind of get at it over here. So we're just going to, oops, fade it out. Now this is a nice drawing and all, but we can push it a little bit further to make it a little bit more exciting than what we've got. To really make the whites stand out, we need to reduce the excess white around it. So if you shade in the background, like a level 4, it'll make everything else pop, or even a level 3, somewhere around here. It's one thing to spend hours drawing the object itself, but if you don't take into consideration the shadows that it casts and the environment in which it's sitting in, then you miss out on a full expression of your drawing, of your object. By the time you're done this step, you shouldn't see that original tracing outline. If you can, maybe take an eraser and lighten up those tracing marks. You can either pull that level of gray down into the sphere or out into the background. Oftentimes in my classroom, we have a white background or an off-white background. So when we have something that we are drawing that is white, white on white, you have to really ask yourself what's lighter, what's darker, because there is an answer. Go back in, always reflect. You may have to lighten or darken things to really make this sphere believable. And this reflected highlight over here on the back end of it should not be a 0. Just should be a little lighter than what's around it. There you go. And there you have it. I hope this lesson helped you draw a grayscale and learn about values, as well as how to transform a circle into a 3D sphere using a full range of value from all the way white to all the way black. Thank you for watching, and remember, my friends, be awesome and be creative. I'll edit this out later. Have a great one.